Whoever sees this and subscribes right now will get a free season of Degrassi. I bleed not included, or wheelchair. Now look, we've been covering this Drake Kendrick Lamar beef and this lawsuit situation. And for me, as an artist and as a rapper, I think there's a lot of implications for art and for rap battles going forward. And as the coming days and weeks will give away, we'll see if Drake actually has a case and if he actually has a chance against UMG, against iHeartRadio, and everyone else that he's taking on. But in the meantime, I think it's interesting to dive into the world of a fellow YouTuber who's also a lawyer. Now you guys have been sending me this, and look, I have checked out some LegalEagle in the past. I think he's a very dope channel. He knows what he's doing. He gives great legal analysis on situations. And what better person to weigh in on this Drake lawsuit situation and to see if Drake actually has cases against UMG, against iHeartRadio, against Spotify. Let's see what LegalEagle has to say about this.
So we know Kendrick got the upper hand rhetorically, but does Drake have leverage in a court of law? Let's find out. Now, there are several things that could eventually become lawsuits here. The first is Drake versus UMG and iHeartMedia, and I can't believe that Drake is forcing me to take the side of UMG. Ugh. Yeah. But in Not Like Us, Lamar blasted Drake as a, quote,
"Hi, Lucy,"
certified pedophile, and someone whose name should be, quote, registered and placed on neighborhood watch. At issue are the statements,
"Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1. Certified lover boy, certified pedophiles. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired? Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor."
Now these are references to allegations that Drake has had relations.
You know what's interesting? Sorry to interrupt LegalEagle, but Kendrick never actually calls Drake a PDF, right? Hear me out. Think about this. Think about context of this, right? Baka got a weird case. Why is he around? Certified lover boy, certified PDFs, plural. But Kendrick could actually not be talking about Drake. He could just be talking about the people that Drake is surrounded by. So he doesn't actually specifically call Drake that. Right, it's implications, but this is art at the end of the day, and any lawyer is going to have a field day with this one in the court of law. Anyways, I digress.
Certified lover boy, certified pedophiles. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired?
I mean, it's a hit. It's still a hit. It's one of the greatest diss tracks of all time at this point.
Now, these are references to allegations that Drake has had relationships with underage women. Drake, of course, denies those allegations.
"I'm way too famous for the shit you just suggested. Drake is not a name that you gon' see on no sex offender list."
And when people...
I'm way too famous. Again, probably one of the worst rebuttals in the history of rebuttals. What an Epstein angle that was. I'm too famous for these flight logs to ever come to light. Hi, Bill Cosby. Stop sleeping on him.
Drake is not a name that you gon' see on no sex offender list.
And when people heard the song, they quickly picked up on the accusations and wondered whether Drake would sue Kendrick Lamar for defamation. But Drake hasn't so far sued Lamar. Instead, he filed a pre-suit discovery petition against iHeartMedia and United Music Group, accusing those companies of knowingly damaging Drake's reputation by releasing the song. The petition was filed in Texas, where iHeartMedia is headquartered and where Drake is domiciled. In Texas, Rule 202 of the Texas Rule of Civil Procedure allows a person to request permission from a court to take depositions before a lawsuit is formally filed. Now, the purpose of this kind of petition is to determine whether there are grounds to file a lawsuit and who the proper parties might be. Now, usually discovery happens after the lawsuit has already been filed, but there are limited circumstances when you can request discovery before filing the lawsuit itself. And according to this petition, UMG approved the release of Not Like Us, despite knowing that its lyrics, cover art, and music video besmirched Drake's character. Quote, "Before it approved the release of the song, UMG knew that the song itself, as well as the accompanying album art and music video, attacked the character of another one of UMG's most prominent artists, Drake, by falsely accusing him of being a sex offender, engaging in pedophilic acts, harboring sex offenders, and committing other criminal sexual acts." Drake argues that UMG had the ability to prevent his reputation from being damaged. Quote, "Pursuant to his rights under various contracts, UMG..."
But again, it's a double, isn't it? Trying to strike a chord, and it's probably A minor. There's implications there, but it's never directly said Drake is doing A, B, and C. Again, I find this will be very interesting if it does actually go to the court of law. But let's keep going.
He has exclusive control over the licensing of Not Like Us and could have refused to release or distribute the song or require the offending material to be edited and or removed. But UMG chose to do the opposite. UMG designed, financed, and then executed a plan to turn Not Like Us into a viral mega hit with the intent of using the spectacle of harm to Drake and his businesses to drive consumer hysteria and, of course, massive revenues. That plan succeeded,
like any label would do.
likely beyond UMG's wildest expectations. And it appears this conspiracy goes so deep that Drake himself is on it, because by filing this petition, he's driving tons and tons of more listens to the song that he hates so much. Now, there were tons of headlines about this case saying that Drake sued Universal Music for defamation, but that's not true. The petition only mentions defamation once in paragraph 17, where it says that Drake might have enough facts to file certain tortious claims against defendants, including but not limited to defamation. That's not the fiery response to pedophilia allegations that some hip-hop fans expected from Drake, especially since Not Like Us wasn't the first time Lamar called Drake a pedophile. On May 4th, Lamar released Meet the Grahams, a scathing critique of Drake and his parents, Sandy and Dennis Graham. He says Drake's company employs sex offenders who keep him on monthly allowance.
He got sex offenders on Hovio that he keep on a monthly allowance.
Lamar also addressed Drake's son Adonis.
Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. Let me be honest. It takes a man to be a man.
I mean, that is the elephant in the room, isn't it? Like, why just choose Not Like Us? In a weird way, can you not see that the rhetoric is going to be, oh, so you only have a problem with Not Like Us, but you don't have a problem with everything that he said on Meet the Grahams? So does that, by causality, make that true?
It's not responsive. I look at him and wish your grandpa would have wore a condom. I'm sorry that you gotta grow up and then stand behind him. Life is hard, I know. The challenges always go beat us home.
And he alleged that Drake has a secret daughter.
Dear baby girl, I'm sorry that your father not active inside your world.
He blamed Drake's parents for raising a horrible fucking person.
You raised a horrible fucking person. The nerve of you, Dennis. Sandra, sit down. What I'm about to say is heavy. Now listen.
And ouch, even in art, those are serious claims. But Drake has not so far sued over any of them, at least not yet. In part because Kendrick Lamar has good First Amendment defenses. He has the right to express an honest opinion about Drake as a public figure, as long as that opinion is not intentionally spurious and malicious. And if you've watched this channel before, then you probably know that when someone makes offensive comments about a public figure, the public figure can only sue if they can prove the statements were made with actual malice. And
it's very, very hard to win a defamation case.
In this context, actual malice means that the statement was made with knowledge of its falsity or with reckless disregard for the truth. And this is a much higher standard than for a private individual and requires evidence that the defendant acted with intentional or extreme disregard for the accuracy. And that's particularly hard if your opinion is based on revealed public facts. Now, we talked about this at length in the video about Cardi B's defamation lawsuit against the YouTuber Tasha. In over 30 YouTube videos, Tasha K falsely claimed that Cardi B was a prostitute, used drugs, and had contracted sexually transmitted diseases. A jury found that these were false allegations that caused significant harm to Cardi B's reputation and emotional well-being. The jury found that Tasha acted with actual malice. They awarded Cardi B over $4 million in damages. So if Drake sues Lamar, he'd have to prove that Lamar knew that Drake was not a sex offender or made defamatory statements with a reckless disregard for the truth. But this case is not directly analogous to Cardi B's defamation case because Lamar offered his commentary about Drake in the context of a song. Song lyrics often feature metaphor, hyperbole, and creative expression, which courts generally don't interpret as factual statements in defamation cases. For example, in 2000...
This is what I've said. This is a very slippery slope. If all of a sudden we have to put filters on art and checks and balances on art. Remember, this is a different conversation in context, right? This is artistry. This is creativity, right? And we use a lot of symbolisms. Like LegalEagle said, we use a lot of metaphors, right? Things can be interpreted in a number of different ways, but that's the beauty of the art. So when we start putting checks and balances on what can and can't be said in a rap battle, not just Drake's case, but if Drake somehow wins this, then you could take that and apply it to any rap battle. Again, it is such a avalanche and slippery slope and just crazy to me that this is even being pondered and wanting to be pursued by someone who is supposed to be an artist, who appreciates the creativity and the freedom of expression that is art. Anyways.
The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit ruled that rap lyrics performed by George Clinton did not defame record producer Armin Baladian. Clinton referred to Baladian as...
He's a disgrace to the species. Into his face with some feces.
Judge Alan E. Norris, writing for a 3-judge panel, said, quote, "There was no specific allegation, such as an act of child abuse, that could be proven. For instance, the statement that Armin is a disgrace to the species represents the kind of puerile taunt that, for better or worse, is typical of rap music." The court said, quote, "Even speech that is crude, what the court calls rhetorical hyperbole, vigorous epithet, and loose figurative or hyperbolic language merits protection. The court also dismissed claims against retailer Meyer. The court ruled that Meyer, as a distributor of the album, could not have had prior knowledge of the allegedly defamatory content. If distributors were held liable, this could discourage the free exchange of ideas, thereby chilling protected speech. So is Drake's potential defamation claim more like Cardi's or like Clinton's? Well, Lamar could argue that his comments about Drake were never intended to be factual, that both he and Lamar have created fictional personas, and that the person referred to in the song is a character. He could also state that he was making exaggerated comments about Drake in order to win a rap beef, and he could argue that Drake didn't suffer any damages because the hip-hop fans are well aware of how rappers use hyperbole. But in response, Drake could argue that his case is more like Cardi B's because Lamar made specific allegations about Drake having sexual relationship with minors, and these allegations hurt his reputation. Everyone is talking about these claims, and the more people who listen to the song, the more widespread the belief that Drake is interested in underage girls. Now, obviously, if you're going to torture your tough guy rap persona and file a dubious lawsuit, you'll want a good lawyer. Probably one that tells you not to file that pre-lawsuit petition. But if you want a great lawyer, my law firm, the Eagle Team, can help. If you've gotten in a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you've gotten a data breach letter saying that your information might have been leaked, or dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or find you the right attorney who can. It's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, and there's nothing up front. So just click on the link in the description or call the phone number on the screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team. So click below. But it's unlikely a court would hold UMG
What a dope casual transition to a self-ad on the channel.
responsible for distributing and promoting the track. In the Clinton case, the court did not hold Meyer responsible for selling the album because, quote, the complaint makes no claim that Meyer had any familiarity with the lyrics prior to disturbing the album containing them, but instead premises liability upon the act of distribution to an internet audience. This is not enough. To hold otherwise would be to...
See, I love how he's digging into this, and this is what I didn't have time to do in making videos covering this, which is why it's great to cover LegalEagle doing this, because precedent is key, especially when it comes to the world of law. In past cases can be used, and rulings in past cases can be signifiers for current cases and current situations. And this is what he's given us, is those dots and that history of this that is very much needed.
This is liability upon the act of distribution to an internet audience. This is not enough. To hold otherwise would be to impose a duty on retailers of books and music to screen those products for potential defamatory material. Not only would that burden be onerous, it could potentially have a chilling effect upon protected speech, because retailers, in an abundance of caution, might stop selling some categories of artistic products, such as rap music, to avoid liability. But Drake...
Remember, slippery slope.
would counter that, unlike Meyer, UMG knew the content of the track that it distributed and arguably helped produce it. However, UMG represents both artists, and both artists knowingly engaged in a years-long rap battle, and that opens up the possibility of using consent as a defense. And there's yet another wrinkle here. In Lamar's song 616 in LA, he claimed to have a mole inside of Drake's management company. He said the mole was spilling the tea about all of Drake's dirty little secrets, and Drake responded by saying that he worked with the mole and, quote, we plotted for a week and fed you the information about Drake's allegedly secret daughter. So Drake says the supposed mole was more like a double agent. If this is the case, and there is evidence that Drake fed Lamar lies, that would cut against the claim that Lamar knowingly spread malicious lies. But
yeah, because if Drake is the one feeding him information like we talked about, is he reverse pseudoing himself?
Also accused UMG and iHeartMedia of payola. Now, payola is the practice of secretly paying or offering incentives to broadcasters, music platforms, and other intermediaries to promote specific songs, artists, or content without...
This is what I really want to see the analysis
disclosing
for.
the arrangement to the audience. The term comes from combining pay and Victrola, a brand of early record players, and the term became widely recognized in the 50s and 60s during the radio era, when record labels would pay radio DJs to play certain songs more frequently. Now, arguably, there's nothing at common law that would prevent paying someone to play a song, but these days, payola is illegal. Under 47 U.S.C. 317, the law states, all matter broadcast by any radio station for which any money, service, or other valuable consideration is directly or indirectly paid, or promised to, or charged, or accepted by the station so broadcasting from any person shall, at the time the same is so broadcast, be announced as paid for or furnished, as the case may be by such person. And under 47 U.S.C. 508, it's illegal for a broadcaster to knowingly air paid content without disclosing the sponsorship or payment arrangement. And the disclosure has to be made at the time of the broadcast. This rule applies to individuals involved in the creation, production, or distribution of broadcast content, including employees and agents of the broadcaster. And payola is arguably bad because it misleads the public into thinking that an artist is popular through merit, word of mouth, when in fact a label is paying to promote that artist. And it hurts musicians who aren't signed to major labels because they don't have the resources to promote that work. And in the modern streaming era...
So how do labels do it? Well,
payola has taken on new forms like paying streaming platforms, playlist curators, or influencers to artificially boost streams, likes, or placements in popular playlists. And that's why the Federal Trade Commission regulates influencer marketing. In February of 2020, the FTC released guidance stating that, quote, when companies launder advertising by paying an influencer to pretend that their endorsement or review is untainted by a financial relationship, this is illegal payola. And in his other petition against UMG, which we'll get to in a minute, Drake alleges that there is a conspiracy by UMG and possible third parties to use payola to boost Not Like Us.
I mean, the thing is, right, you know that labels are using their soft power and exercising their influence. And maybe it's not direct payments, but there's plenty of relationships that they have with the Spotifys of the world, with the iHeartRadios. If they want to push an artist, right, if they want to uplift an artist, they have a formula and they have ways and means to use their influence, to use their vast networks and resources in order to do that. And who better to understand how that works than the very person who was the benefit of that label and of that influencing system for over a decade? I'm talking about Drake himself. And remember, we even covered when Spotify had to issue refunds because fans were getting tired of having playlists that had nothing to do with Drake, having Drake songs on them and just being slapped with Drake the entire time with the advertising and just the over-the-top Drake push that was obvious and apparent on Spotify at the time.
His quote, petitioner has learned of at least one UMG employee making payments to an independent radio promoter who has agreed to transfer those payments to certain radio stations and or radio station employees. These radio stations subsequently played Not Like Us, and to petitioner's knowledge, did so without disclosing to their listeners that they had been paid by UMG to do so. Now, Drake says he hasn't been able to, quote, confirm whether any iHeartRadio stations were among the stations paid as part of UMG's pay-to-play scheme, or whether there were any direct payments from UMG to iHeartRadio to promote Not Like Us. But he goes on, quote, given iHeartMedia's status as the #1 audio company in the country, petitioner believes that UMG engaged in similar tactics to drive radio play of Not Like Us on iHeartMedia stations. And Drake claims that a whistleblower backs up his claims, quote, one whistleblower, whose identity is unknown, revealed publicly that someone from management paid him thousands of dollars on May 6, 2024, to use bots to achieve 30 million streams of Not Like Us on Spotify in the days immediately after its release to turn Not Like Us into a crazy hit. Bots appear to be real social media accounts, but are in fact software programs designed to mimic human behavior. And the petition cites this video from YouTuber Jamisco Dawn.
Relationships with them and their label and their managers.
Okay.
So there's certain people who I would never do that to out of respect. But the most recent song I did do all the bots for, well, most of it and the marketing was Not Like Us.
So the upshot of this petition is that he has enough smoke to think that there's a fire, and he needs the court's permission to get information that would back up his claims. And there's another interesting piece to this potential lawsuit. Drake is signed to Republic Records, which is a subsidiary of UMG, so in this petition he accuses his own label of radically departing from industry norms to boost his rival. Quote, in order to create incentives for high visibility influencers to spread Not Like Us, in what appears to be a radical departure from long-standing internal policy at UMG, UMG removed copyright restrictions on Not Like Us on YouTube and Twitch, thereby whitelisting the song. So
Actually, they temporarily removed it, and then once we thought we were good, they came back like a thief in the night and just slapped it back on behind the scenes.
The idea is that YouTubers could use a song without paying a fee, which would boost its reach. Although from my perspective as a YouTuber, that's kind of a stupid idea, because if you use copyrighted music, your video often gets demonetized, but that doesn't change the reach of the video itself. No. Unless a label actively blocks the video that uses the copyrighted music, it'll get exactly the same distribution as it would otherwise.
Yes.
And monetization has no effect on the search and discovery algorithm. So what does Drake want the judge to do? Well, he wants to be able to conduct pre-suit depositions from representatives of UMG and iHeartMedia.
I think what's very interesting is, Not Like Us is catchy. Not Like Us is stuck in so many people's heads. I mean, you could comment down below, right? If you bumped the song, if you played it multiple times. I think that is what leads to a song carrying weight. Like, there's only so many times that a song can be pushed on you, and then it's up to the public to push the song itself, to bump it, to play it, to get behind it. And whatever the bot situation is, because I've seen a number of people, I've seen the guy who's claiming the bots has actually been exposed and all of this, and there's been a lot of back and forth, right? And a lot of narrative manipulation going on both sides with that. But I think most people can step back and go, yeah, I listened to Not Like Us. I liked it. It was a hit. And I think that says all that needs to be said right there. It's not just bots streaming it and pushing it and playing it. It was successful because People like the fucking song.
And this is typical of civil suits. The plaintiff usually asks the defendants to identify the people who have information relevant to the plaintiff's claims, and those depositions are treated as if the anticipated lawsuit has already been filed, following the same discovery rules applicable to non-party depositions in active cases. And in New York, Drake filed a petition for pre-action discovery against UMG and Spotify. The petition alleges that UMG engaged in deceptive practices to artificially inflate the streaming numbers of
Hi, Daniel Eck.
Not Like Us. And this filing is not the same as a lawsuit. Section 3102 of the New York Civil Practice Law and Rules allow a potential plaintiff to obtain discovery before filing a formal suit, and plaintiffs typically use the pre-discovery filings to preserve critical evidence or assess the viability of a claim. And a party seeking pre-action discovery has to file a motion with the trial court in New York. And it's not meant to be a fishing expedition. A potential plaintiff must ask the court's permission, and the court has the discretion to grant or deny the request based on the merits and necessity. And here, Drake claims that UMG used bots and payola.
I wonder if behind the scenes, Drake is trying to use this as leverage, whether it's leverage to get out of his label deal. There's something else that he really, really wants right now from UMG, because he didn't just go all in on the lawsuit yet, right? The lawsuit hasn't happened yet. This is a move where, you put the piece on the board. The piece is there. Everybody can see the piece. Maybe they see and they start to anticipate the moves from that piece, but you still haven't moved the piece yet, right? And maybe you put your hand back down on it and you take the piece off of the board and you don't follow through on it, right? It's definitely a posturing situation as well as a evidential gathering situation is what I'm saying. It really depends on the intention behind Drake doing this and Drake's team doing this.
Schemes to boost Not Like Us, which hurt his career. UMG allegedly offered Spotify reduced licensing fees in exchange for disproportionately promoting Not Like Us. Quote, streaming and licensing is a zero-sum game. Every time a song breaks through, it means another artist does not. UMG's choice to saturate the music market with Not Like Us comes at the expense of other artists like Drake.
Isn't that ironic?
He says the company's...
Like, you could take that argument and flip it again for the past decade on the practices and what they did with Drake taking away from opportunities for other artists. If he really wants to take that path and try to argue that.
Influencers, radio stations, and others to inflate the track's performance metrics without disclosing these payments. And the defendants allegedly used bots to simulate streams, creating the appearance of greater popularity. And Drake says that if he can get the discovery, he can prove the defendants violated the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which is known as Rico, as well as New York's Deceptive Business Practices and False Advertising Acts. Drake believes, probably incorrectly, he has a viable civil Rico claim with predicate acts of wire fraud, mail fraud, and/or bribery for UMG's payments to unknown.
Who would have thought back in the day when they came forward with Rico to help bring down the mobs, that nowadays it would be used for Drake to go after his own company and relate to music streaming? My, how the world has changed.
Parties in the form of reduced licensing fees to Spotify. But his lawyers need information from defendants to prove it. Quote, specifically, petitioner requires information about the method by which the third parties were paid in order to determine which underlying predicate acts to plead, and requires information about which benefits were conferred upon UMG in exchange for the payments. Additionally, petitioners lack sufficient information to identify the third parties who acted in conspiracy with UMG. And Drake...
You know what I like about this channel is it feels like a breakdown channel, like what we do here, except he takes legal documents and information and he breaks it down and makes it relatable and digestible for us, the consumer and the viewer, to take it on board and to understand these concepts and to move forward with it. I like that.
These practices harm consumers and violate General Business Law Section 349, which prohibits deceptive or misleading acts or practices in the conduct of any business, trade, or commerce, or in the furnishing of services in New York. Now, Universal Music told TMZ, quote, the suggestion that UMG would do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue. We employ the highest ethical practices, in our marketing and promotional campaigns. No amount of contrived or absurd legal arguments in this pre-action submission can mask the fact that fans chose the music that they want to hear.
Yeah, no way am I ever going to white knight for UMG.
So do Drake's claims have any merit? So far, they look pretty tenuous. The petitions admit they don't have enough evidence at the moment to substantiate the legal claims, and Drake would need concrete evidence of intentional manipulation and direct link between the manipulation and damages. But it's also possible this pre-suit discovery might turn up some smoking guns. And alternatively, maybe he has an ulterior motive and he just wants to get out of his contract with UMG. And for that, I can't blame him. But this kind of pre-suit discovery is pretty rare, so it's unlikely to go too far. So Drake lost the rap battle, made himself look like a wuss, and ultimately probably won't have anything to show for it. Now, whether or not
he's getting cooked by lawyers now,
UMG actually whitelisted Kendrick's song or not, dealing with bogus copyright claims is something that all of us creators have to deal with. Which,
you know, what's interesting though is some Drake reactions, I'm trying to remember now, were whitelisted temporarily. and some weren't. So like, what's going on there? Like, I remember publishing like one or two of those Drake diss tracks, and they were allowing me to monetize for a period of time, much in the same way that Kendrick Lamar did before they pulled the rug out. But, you know, it was there, and it was definitely, I remember that specifically with Drake too.
Song or not, dealing with bogus copyright claims is something that all of us creators have to deal with, which makes being a creator really difficult when you're dealing with popular media like movies or music.
Yes.
Which is why my friends and I created today's sponsor, Nebula. On Nebula, you can watch all
Oh, you gonna talk
of
to
our
me?
videos ad-free and early, because our videos always go up on Nebula first. Plus, there's tons of exclusive content, and we don't have to deal with bogus content ID claims. On Nebula, you can watch all of our videos ad-free and early, because our videos always go up on Nebula first. Plus, there's tons of exclusive content. For example, the Nebula version of this actual video features a LegalEagle version of the Kendrick diss track. Psst, I sue dead people. And of course, we don't have to deal with bogus content ID claims. And for a limited time, you can get a lifetime membership. You can buy once and then never again. It's the greatest deal of all. I know tens of thousands of you sign up for Nebula using the Curiosity Stream bundle,
I love how he just slipped in another ad on
but
us.
as you probably know, that's over. So if you want to support this channel, the only way to ensure that the money you spend on Nebula goes to us directly is to sign up directly. And if you're new here, Nebula includes tons of exclusive videos from me, original series from your favorite people, movies, plays, classes, and more. I've heard it described as Netflix for people that like.
All right, I'm going to skip through a little bit.
How cool is it that a lot of the former Mystery Science Theater people, my other Nebula, say for creator work on Hollywood with your friend, the link that's on content, get 40% off for content, seeing more big
Are we just ending on this? Oh, I guess we are.
exclusives, and support the ambitious projects that my friends and I are working on our own stream.
All right, no, that's fair enough. So he made his point, and then he waited till the very end of the ad. One thing I will say about content ID is, especially as a breakdown channel, as a reactor, like, we have to fight it and deal with copyright issues every single day. I've had a number of copyright strikes thrown at me, takedown notices. It is just a continuous battle, the life of a YouTuber. But anyways, very interesting. Very interesting from LegalEagle. And I think what I really wanted to see was a more digestive analysis of the claims that Drake is making. Now, he's gone through all the legal documents, which, again, it's a timing thing. I don't have time to do that. So he's gone through it all. And he has the expertise to do that too. He doesn't see anything substantial yet. There is no smoking gun from any of this. Drake is information searching. And as he postulated towards the end there, is there an ulterior motive for this? Is Drake actually going to go through with this? I think the key is, there's probably two for me in terms of like stepping back and just reading from this and understanding the history. I think one is that, yeah, this is leverage. This is definitely leverage from Drake. So that's important. Two, the timing, right? The timing of dropping this when Kendrick Lamar released his album. I know that this had to be done in advance, but, you know, Drake definitely wants to cast some doubt, cast some shade into Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl appearance, into Kendrick Lamar performing Not Like Us. He definitely wants to manipulate that narrative and have his fingerprints on it and at least have a say in it. And this is going to do that from a PR perspective, from an internet perspective, and just, you know, what people are talking about around Kendrick Lamar and Not Like Us in that situation, right? That's two. And actually, a third one is, I think that as it stands, I don't know if there is intention to go through with the lawsuit. That's why they're doing it through this means, through New York and through Texas and through this way. Because I think Drake is well aware of the practices and the shady dealings that record labels do to push artists that are their favorites. Record labels definitely have their favorites. And if they want to lift up those artists, they have the ability and resources to do that. And Drake has benefited from that. So who better to be aware of those practices in that situation than Drake? But what Drake needs is not just that awareness. He needs the cold, hard facts and evidence in order to do it. So he is looking for that smoking gun. So from Drake's side of things, use this as leverage. Get out of your UMG deal. Throw dirt on the whole Kendrick situation. And then three is, maybe you get that bonus and you get that benefit of all of a sudden you get that evidence and you just get that one piece that you need to connect the other dots and to line it up as a full suit with the other cards that you are currently holding. And then you can proceed and try to gain a victory in that way. I don't know. It's all interesting. But like I said, I'm very tuned into it as an artist because there's huge implications for our creativity, especially as a rapper being involved in rap battles. But what do you guys think about this? Comment down below. Let me know how you think the situation is going right now. If you agree with LegalEagle's analysis, if you think there's more that we need to be aware of, let me know. Anyways, I love you guys. LegalEagle, you are Knox Hill certified. All right, guys, thank you as always for tuning in, for your love, for your support. Don't forget, you want to support the channel directly? Cop your hats, cop your shirts, knoxhillmusic.com. Get the brand out there this holiday season. Support the channel, really does go a long way. I love you guys. Stay safe, stay positive. Take care of your mentals. I'll catch you again.